We are about to start Be'ezus Hashem Yisbarach, the Heilige Tefillah of Ahava Rabba. Very, very exciting. Something that is very, very dear to my heart. Something that I've spoken about over the years as well. Those of you that were Mesheh last year, remember we spoke about this. And I think that it's a lot of Ashkocha Protis, Siyata Dishmayev, that this falls out right before Shavuos, because there is no greater Tefillah that we can learn and understand and hopefully internalize in our Tefillahs than the Heilige Tefillah of Ahava Rabba. So today, Be'ezus Hashem, we're going to be just doing a little bit of a Hakdama, a little bit of an introduction to understand what is this tefillah, where did it come from, and how important it is. Maybe some maisim of some tzaddikim also to understand. So, on a simple level, the Reishis Chochma brings in Shara Avo that this bracha was originally instituted. It was masakin through the Anshe Knesses Hagdoila, and in fact, the Gemara in Brachas Daf Yud Aleph Amud Beis tells us that the Kehanim would say the bracha of Ahava Rabba at the time, obviously, when the Beis Hamikdash was Mekayim, when it was here, and it was a very, very high tefillah. Why is it specifically before Kriya Shema? Now, we have to understand it from a few levels. The first thing is, the Chassidim tell us, the Chassidish Sforim, that the hachana of a mitzvah is sometimes even more choshev than the mitzvah itself. So Ahava Rabba is the one tefillah that we say right before Kriya Shema. Kriya Shema is Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shamayim. We're about to accept upon ourselves the yoke of heaven. So the last tefillah is obviously the most important tefillah. Just to give you an example, the Havdol Elef Havdolos, if a person is going into the king's palace, so there are many, many different sections where the guards stop you and check you and do various checks on you to make sure you're wearing the right clothing, you're doing the right thing, you're saying the right thing, you have the right things with you, whatever it may be. So the outermost guards, they're not so makbid, but when you get right in there and you get right close, and imagine the last guard before they open the doors and the king's there, that's going to be like the most severe check. So the whole davening, we've been working on ourselves to get closer and closer to the Rabbeinu Shalom and working ourselves to mamish be machnes ourselves to go into the Heichel, to go into the Rabbeinu Shalom, b'chvoid of atzmai, the Kisa HaKovod, to try and get as close as we can to Hashem. Here we are, it's Ahava Rabba, it's right before Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, right before Kabbalas Ol Malchus Shamayim. This is one of the greatest things that we can possibly do, and it's a very, very important thing because of Avas Hashem, as the Yisod V'Shoyesh V'Avodah brings down. The Yisod V'Shoyesh V'Avodah tells us, and I want to mention to you, this is very important. He brings down, and this is in Sharavi, in Perek Gimel, he says that a very, very important thing. There is a mitzvah, mid'oraisa, to love Hashem. How are you makayim that mitzvah? Little do many people know. Says the Yisod V'Shoyesh V'Avodah by saying Ahava Rabba or Avas Olim. We're not going to go through that. There's different nuschayos, obviously, in different ways of saying it. Of course, there's a machlokes brought down in Gemara Brachos Yud Aleph on the base. Machlokes Amoraim. What exactly is the nusach? Okay, Shita Shmuel is you say Ahava Rabba, Das Chachamim, Avas Olim. Nusach Ashkenaz generally says Ahava Rabba during the week. Nusach Sfard says Ahava Rabba only on Shabbos, but there are different nuschos and it's irrelevant what we're saying. We're just going to call it Ahava Rabba, but of course it includes Avas Olam as well. But the Yisod V'Shoyesh V'Avodah tells us, and he brings Reb Chaim Vital, Talmud of the Arizal, who quotes the Zohar Kodesh, that says that a person is Mekayim, when he says Ahava Rabba every day, a mitzvah d'oraisa, of Avas Hashem, of loving Hashem, which is one of the greatest mitzvahs we can do. And he says really it should be the opposite way around. He says if you think about it, Psuka de Zimra is where we sing songs to Hashem. It's beautiful. That should be where we have Ava to Hashem, love to Hashem. Whereas Ahava Rabba is, we should be saying it with trepidation. We should be petrified with a certain awesomeness, right? Why is it that we're saying that the Zohar says that we're Mekayim, the mitzvah of loving Hashem with Ahava Rabba? So the Zohar says, again, Reb Chaim Vital, the Yisod V'Shoyesh V'Avodah, brings down, and he brings a mashal of a person that has a connection to the king. He's serving the king. So he says that when the king's there, it's very easy to say, I love the king, I want to do whatever it is. But what about when the king's not there, when you're not in front of the king? Then we can recognize who's really close and who's not. Says the Yisod V'Shoyesh V'Avodah, when we look through the words of Ahava Rabba, which we're going to do Be'ezus Hashem in the next few days, and it's absolutely tremendous. By the way, this is like the climax of all tefillah, Ahava Rabba. It's huge stuff, huge stuff. And you look through the words, we're asking Hashem, how can I serve you? How can I be the best possible Eved Hashem? And Eved Hashem is someone who serves Hashem, wants to learn the Torah, wants to do the mitzvahs. And that's what we're saying to Hashem. I want to serve you, Lilmoid L'Lamed. I want to do whatever I have to do. I want to serve you Baratzon. I want to do everything that a Yid is meant to do. And therefore, when we exclaim this to Hashem, how do I serve you? That's the greatest form of Avas Hashem. Because the greatest form of a good servant is when he goes to his master and he says, what do you need? What can I do for you? Tell me how to serve you. That means you love your master, if that's what you want to do. If all you want to do is serve him, you love him. And therefore, if we're saying to Hashem in the words of Ahava Rabba, which we're going to say and try to explain over here, we have to realize that we're asking Hashem on the highest level, we want to serve you. It means that we love you, but we should also, be machnis within our hearts the love of Hashem and the tremendous chesed that Hashem does for us, and everything we've concentrated on over the last bunch of shiurim when we discuss the idea of Psukkah de Zimra, but the love of Hashem that He has for us and the love that we want to have to Him as well. Just to give you an idea of the power of Ahava Rabba, the Heilige Rabshitzer, when he davened Shachris on Shavuos morning, it took him Shachris, just Shachris, took around 12 hours. That was the Shachris on Shavuos morning, because Shachris on Shavuos is mamish the Spitz, the whole Psukkah de Zimra. Maybe we'll discuss it more before Shavuos. But his Ahava Rabba on Shavuos morning was a few hours. So much of the time of Shachris was only dedicated for Ahava Rabba. Pasha, the hours and hours that he have in there. So you may tell me, that's a Chassidus Shemaisa, but it's actually not, and I'll tell you why. There were Yidden who bring down, Tzimaya brings this down, who were very close to the Heilige Chazon Ish. Now the Chazon Ish wasn't a Chassidus Rebbe, but there were people who were right by him on Shavuos morning. And Shavuos morning, they were standing behind the chair of the Heilige Chazon Ish. And the Chazon Ish, by the way, was not a man who was known for emotions. Came to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, never cried. Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, hardly ever cried. They were stood behind his chair on Shavuos morning, as he said, Ahava Rabba, Bechias, he was crying, he was trembling with fear. You see from many tzaddikim, that when it came to Ahava Rabba, that was like the climax. They waited a whole year for Shavuos morning, Ahava Rabba, Lilmoid L'Lamed. After all, Torah is everything. We live with Torah, we can't live without Torah. And therefore, Shavuos morning is the time that we ask for Torah, and we want Siyata D'Shmaya, and we want to serve Hashem, and we want to do the mitzvahs, and we want to do your Ratzon. We want to do everything. The expression of love that we are saying to Hashem when we say Ahava Rabba is the greatest of all of the tefillahs, and it's right here in Ahava Rabba. The Gedolim, the Tzaddikim understood this, and obviously we're not on that level to spend hours on Ahava Rabba and to be trembling in our seats, but to some little idea, to understand what we're saying, to try and implement it, to try and feel it, to try and put it into our bones, into our blood, into our veins, so that next time we say Ahava Rabba and we understand the words, which in Mitzvah Shem tomorrow we're going to start with the words itself, we're going to have a greater understanding of what this is. It's the love of Hashem, it's the Ahava Rabba, it's the great love of Hashem, and Be'ez Hashem tomorrow we'll start with the Perish HaMilas, going through bit by bit of Ahava Rabba.